Um, in my response, when I was reading the communique, I reiterated some factors responsible for the prices, of course, aside from the Russia-Ukrainian or the Russia-Ukraine war has resulted in a situation where crude price has increased due to supply shortage. And of course, for Nigeria, like you know, aside from this issue of crude price rising, Nigeria has not been able to meet its export quota, primarily because of unwarranted oil theft that we see today in our environment. And this obviously has resulted in the increase in the price of diesel and petrol all over the world. Just yesterday, in fact, for the first time, on CNN I watched where they said tanker drivers are also refusing to drive, or because there's no fuel, diesel, or because diesel prices have also gone up and all that. Or cases where, because of the Russia and Ukrainian crisis, what we have seen is that because between Russia and Ukraine, for instance, on wheat and even some elements in maize, they supply close to almost about 35% of the global volume available for these grains. And because of the war, there has been supply shortages that has also resulted in the rising price of not just petroleum products, but also on food prices or the prices of these grains. The increase is so astronomical that it is currently creating a lot of problems globally and ultimately the global inflationary pressures that we see today. But what are we doing? Like we said again in the communique, we are concerned that, MPC was concerned that the inflation that we're seeing from the core side came primarily because of supply shortage. Because if you check primarily whether in Abuja, in Lagos, or most of the centers, there still remains fuel queue everywhere. So what you find is that because there's this fuel queue arising largely from supply shortages, there is arbitrary increase in prices by retail marketers because they are not sure whether they will get more diesel after they've sold their stock. In fact, they are pricing what they are holding based on their expectation of their replacement price. So I don't know, somebody was saying yesterday when I was at a session that even the price of diesel had risen to almost about 700 or even 800 naira per liter. So what are we therefore saying? We will try as much as possible, and we're told at this meeting today by the representative of finance, the PAMSEC finance, that the Minister of Finance and then NPC are holding engagements to see to what can be done to make sure that adequate funding is provided so that petroleum products is made available, so that they can be imported and then all our filling stations can have these products. We are also saying we'll be engaging in NPC as well. If there's any kind of intervention that we can provide to help it, make it easy for them to bring in these products, so that this shortage can stop, then we will see that when supply increases and people are relatively confident that when they sell whatever they are holding in petrol or diesel stock, that they can easily go and replace them, then the arbitrary price increases will reduce. When arbitrary pricing reduces, of course, we can begin to see that there will be gradual moderation in the price of this product, which would ultimately result in the moderation in the prices of other products whose prices would have gone up as a result of the arbitrary increase in the price of these items. This is simply how we think we can work with the CBN. Secondly, MPC also noted that because of the turnaround maintenance of most of the, or some of the generating stations, right, power generating stations that they had to shut down. Shutting down has resulted in what I read again from some circulars from some of the discos, that there was a shutdown, a collapse of the grid. Whereas that was the case, but it's just shortage because all the generating companies they're shut down, and because they're shut down, there is blackout, and when there's blackout, what you find is a lot of people go to buy diesel, and also the demand pressure, fruits pressure on prices, and then this is like a continuum. So what we're trying to say here is that the CBN has always been there to support the power sector. Like you all know, we've disbursed over 1.3 trillion naira in the last 5 years to support both the generators or discos, or to acquire equipment, or to buy meters, or to even improve what is being paid to electricity generating companies so that they can continue to pay for their gas, and then the system can continue to operate. We will be engaging also with the Power Minister and MBET and NEC to see whatever we can do to support them. And of course, we will also, thirdly, to ensure that we're able to continue to moderate food prices, because what we find is that there are some external exogenous factors that are outside our control are coming from the impact of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. But if, for instance, that has resulted in pressure on core side of the inflation, so what we're saying is that on food, where we're seeing some moderation, that our development finance department should see what can be done to continue to aggressively make sure that we improve on our anchor borrower program, improve on all other programs that we have that is meant to boost agricultural output. If agricultural output in our various products are improved, what you will find is that we would see a further moderation in food inflation, which may help to dampen the effect of the rise in core, thereby moderating effectively at the headline inflation. So if these actions are taken, we are reasonably positive that inflation will come down. So that's the reason we said we must take deliberate and specific and urgent action to address the factors that were responsible or that have been responsible for the uptick in inflation and prices, and that we believe that if addressed, we will be able to see a solution to the rising prices in the country. International Monetary Fund, I have to admit, has been a great supporter as well as advisor to the Central Bank of Nigeria and to Nigeria, because it's important that we underscore the support that we have always received from the IMF. And now I will highlight two. In 2020, as a result of COVID, the IMF opened its vaults to all countries, particularly emerging markets, for us to draw on the RFI facility loan. Nigeria got the highest in Africa of almost $3.4 billion. It has helped us, aided us in resolving some of our problems, particularly during the period of COVID. In 2021, again, when they also saw, is it the second or third wave, IMF came up again and said, look, they were going to increase the special drawing rights, the SDR, and we also benefited to the tune of even above $3 billion. So have they been very helpful? I like to underscore it, that they have been extremely helpful to the countries that are working with them. I guess when you appreciate somebody for a good job, hopefully they will do more, even in 2022 and 2023, because no doubt I have read that even central bankers are already talking that, look, this Russia-Ukraine crisis, how it is affecting them, and how they will need some kind of support and bridging support to be able to overcome some of the challenges. However, in terms of advice, I think it's important that we reiterate the fact that the Central Bank of Nigeria remains a development finance-oriented central bank. And it is normal, it is very, very normal for an emerging market or developing economy to deploy development finance tools through interventions to support the growth of the economy. Let's not forget, about 2 years ago, monetary policy said that our new thrust will be price and monetary stability that is conducive to growth. If we are to adopt price and monetary stability that is conducive to growth in an environment where there is a tight fiscal space, where revenue shortfalls abound, and even government has to borrow, then I think it is just reasonable that central banks should step in to support the fiscal, to fill that space, not through grants, but through loans to our smallholder farmers, through loans to our small and medium enterprise businesses, through loans to our households, through loans to wake up our manufacturing industries that are dead. And I can say that in the last 2.5 years, we've done certainly more than 3 trillion naira, whether we like it or not. And IMF themselves agree that, for instance, the amount over 300 billion that we've disbursed to almost 1 million households helped to catalyze consumption expenditure that has helped Nigeria to turn positive in its GDP, even though GDP is still fragile and we still face vulnerabilities. IMF knows that even our intervention to the manufacturing sector is helping, and we have facts to show so. Aside from Macro-Bora program in agriculture, we've seen, was it last month, we went to Sokoto to launch a 3 million tons cement factory to increase manufacturing output in cement. Tomorrow, Mr. President will be going to Lagos to commission a $2.5 billion fertilizer plant. What will that do for us? The $2.5 billion fertilizer plant will result in additional 3 million tons of urea in the country. Indorama produces 3 million metric tons. Notore produces 500,000. That is 6.5 million metric tons per annum. Our annual consumption is 1 million. What does that mean? They will export. We will earn FX that will create liquidity in our I&E window and lead to less reliance on central bank for foreign exchange. So I think IMF themselves know this. They know that what we are doing, these interventions, are for good of the economy, are for good of the country. And I think they themselves know it. We go twice a year for IMF World Bank meetings. At those sessions at the IMF plenaries, when issues come up, we discuss these issues. Then again, we hold even what is called early warning signal meetings. At those early warning meetings, each country puts on the table their peculiar problems. And what do they end up advising us? We'll give you advice as IMF. But we will also advise that you go back and adopt your homegrown policies that can be well adapted and suited to your own domestic situation. That is what we're doing. So I think, yes, if IMF says we will, it's an advice which we will take, but at this time, we are in a development finance mode where we must grow our economy, while at the same time, we're doing everything possible to make sure that our mandate of price and monetary stability still remains sacrosanct. These are very difficult choices, And it is important that people get to know that these are very difficult choices. It is very simple for us to sit down and do inflation, price, exchange rate, and we'll go. They were going below all this to look at what are the causative factors, and we're thinking of how to resolve them for the Nigerian economy and for the good of Nigerians. So I think IMF understands this. So when you say this, of course, as it's like an examiner. When an examiner comes, there must be an exception. So that's an exception report, which we'll accept, and we'll see how to work through it. Finance, we've done some bridge finance of almost about 200 billion naira for that purpose. The remaining sums, the asset managers are going to be going into the data room to see the numbers, to determine viability of those roads, traffic counts, Lagos Ibadan, Abuja Kano Kaduna AKK project, as well as the second Niger bridge, which is almost completed now. So I'm sure we are only meant to complete the funding that federal government has put into it before now. And so we will do it. And the PAMSEC Finance, who also is assisting, at least in terms of collaboration between monetary and fiscal, also assured that there are pipelines of infrastructure projects that will be looked at. But of course, Infraco being an institution that looks at the commercial viability, will look at each of those projects, determine their commercial viability, determine particularly how will revenue be raised and realized, how will revenue be realized to fund to repay the loans, and from there they will be done. So I believe we're on a fast mode, but 2022 will be a very, very aggressive year in the tenure of Infraco. That will be the update. We received a couple of inquiries about it, and I think I got one of my colleagues to write something. So at least if I don't know it, let me read what my colleague wrote. My colleague said the neutral cash hub were part of the bank's retail cash strategy to encourage processing of bank cash that be done by registered operators rather than bringing fit and unfit notes to the CBN. The idea is to allow cash processing companies collect wholesale cash from market women on behalf of banks and credit the customer direct. This will do away with the intermediate step of customers going to banks and then banks processing going to processing company. But in this case, neutral name is to allow a hub attend to customers right from the market, from any bank, and there is interoperability, so that a hub would not be required for each bank in each location. So it's like shared services. One person can collect for all the banks and then deploy the bank after processing. I think it's meant to help the system. We believe so. And we know that the security agencies are doing a lot of work, trying to make sure that they get the bandits off the way, so that farmers can access their farms. And now what we're saying is that, yes, if farmers are able to access their farms, do they have the wherewithal to procure the inputs, the seeds, the fertilizer, and other inputs which they can go back to farm and produce? We're making all those available, and that's why we still remain reasonably optimistic that food prices will moderate in 2022, notwithstanding the global challenges that we see along the food value chain.